Barry Baumgartner, hello, welcome. Hi,
Well,
everybody.
hello. I feel like I should say hello to you. Like, I haven't seen you all day.
I know,
it's
how
been
you
that
doing?
kind of day.
Well,
Okay.
we spent 3 hours in a car together.
Well, outside of that, yeah.
So, hello, everybody.
Hello to you.
And welcome. My name is Blue Melnick, and this...
I'm Barry Baumgartner. It's so great to have you with us.
It is. And we are, we're a little punchy today. It's later in the day. It's 7 o'clock. We've had a couple of pretty long days. We
just wrapped up pretty amazing 3-day event for Jeff Walker, a virtual edition of Product Launch Formula Live, which was super fun. We always love collaborating with Jeff and his team. And then we went right into having a guest in our studio yesterday for a really detailed walkthrough of what we do and how we do it.
Yep.
And then we jumped in a car at the crack of the dawn and raced to the office. So we've been going strong all day, but we didn't want the day to end without spending some time with you, because we have some pretty cool stuff going on that we want to share that we think you can use as you're debating what you do next. If you're in the in-person live event world, exactly what do you do when COVID strikes?
Exactly. And to start things off, it's not uncommon for people to go, are you guys really live? Are you guys actually live? So let me tell you what time it is.
We'll do a time check.
It's 7:02. It is it's May 19th, and I want to say hi back to some folks in the chat.
Awesome.
Anthony from sunny Puerto Rico. Let's see. Hello from Washington, D.C.
Awesome.
Nashville. Love Nashville.
Love Nashville.
Portland, Oregon. Paul Colligan. Hey, Paul. Is that the Paul Colligan?
Is it? I don't know. Love Paul Colligan.
Yeah. Sherry, hello. Beth Gully. She says hello. Sherry's from Atlanta, Georgia. Who else do we got here? Jamie from Philadelphia. You have friends in Philadelphia.
I do. My family lives in Philadelphia. Love Philly.
Yeah. So wanted to say hi. We are in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. And Murrells Inlet is what we like to say, or what they like to say, is a small little drinking village with a fishing problem. So
there literally is a sign when you drive in that says that, believe it or not.
Yeah, exactly. There really is that. A couple of people from Canada. I saw Guelph. I saw BC. I saw Kamloops. I saw Toronto. I'm Canadian, so I like to see all my fellow Canadians. What's up, everybody? Hello from Ontario, Canada. That's generic. You got to be more specific than that. Seraphim, Sammy. Love to Vancouver. Oh my gosh, you guys are just nailing it. Yeah, love it. Lots of thumbs up. Bob Vincent from Dallas. Hello, everyone. All right, so that's our hello.
That's our we really are here. Hello.
Yes, and we are thrilled to have you all with us for the next 90 minutes, where we are very pleased to announce. Are you ready for this? Newsflash, live events are not dead. That's right. You may think, how could that possibly be, crazy person? You can't have gatherings of more than 2.5 people. And just so we're all on the same page, when we say live events are not dead, we are talking about virtual events, and we compare virtual events to their in-person counterparts. A lot of you funny folks on the interwebs.
Yeah, I get a kick out of this. Reading the chat, if you are too, you'll know what I'm talking about, where it's like, duh, of course, a virtual event is outperforming a live event, or no kidding, or you guys are crazy, or tell us something we didn't already know, or whatever.
Yeah.
But what we're really talking about here is that, and listen, we think of live events as two different versions. There's live events virtual and live events in person. They're both live events, just a delivery platform. One is in person and one is virtual. One is offline, one is online. And what's happening right now, and we've now just finished our third virtual event, is that virtual events are outperforming their in-person counterparts. So,
from when? Their in-person counterparts from last week, Barry?
No, from a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I mean, listen, we're pretty lucky in that we have a lot of repeat business. And so we look at metrics year after year. And so we have metrics for clients like Jeff Walker, who we've done 5 years of PLF Live for. And so we're looking at the metrics of how did those events perform in person. And now when we virtualize them, do a virtual event experience of that exact same event, how do they perform? And they are outperforming their in-person counterparts. Now, the next thing you typically are saying, well, no kidding, because everyone's stuck at home. It's easy to say that. But the reality is, people at home have a lot of distractions.
Yeah,
There's a lot going on
everybody's stuck at home, right? I mean,
Right.
you may say, of course, people are stuck at home, but they're stuck at home with their kids. They're stuck at home with their spouse. In some cases, with their mother-in-law. I mean,
We were just talking to someone.
yeah, there's a lot going on at home. And Barry Molin who loves your name, by the way,
Oh,
because
thank you,
because
Barry.
because
It's a
that
good
Barry
name.
is spelled the exact same way.
Is it really?
Yeah, Bari.
Well, that's really unusual, Barry. Seriously, I never meet Barrys that are spelled Bari. So hats off. It's a good spelling. Whatever your mother did, she did it right, I think, because I think it's a great way to spell it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. What else do we... Anyway, so, yeah, we are comparing live events to their in-person counterparts that took place, months ago and in some cases last year. And then where like Barry said, where we have multi-year records of what has been going down. So
Yeah, and here's the other thing I want to clear up. Then there's been a few haters who were like, how could you say that about in-person events? In-person events are magical and nothing can, and you're right. You're right. You were right. So don't mishear us on this. I've been in the live event space doing in-person events since I graduated from college. So let's just say a good long time. And we've owned Sage.
you don't want to be specific about that?
I don't really feel the need to be specific. Let's just say, it's a good long time, over 2 decades. And then, we've owned Sage for 16 years, and our bread and butter is in-person events. We live, love, and leverage in-person events all day long. So we are in no way trying to suggest that virtual events should replace in-person events, that in-person events are dead, that in-person events won't come back. Quite the opposite. Like, we cannot wait to open the doors to the first in-person event once this COVID thing simmers down a notch. Mm-hmm. So know that we are not saying that they are better, that they're going to replace. We're just saying that in this incredibly difficult time, an unprecedented time, there's an unprecedented opportunity. People are home and they are looking for you as leaders, your content, your connection, your community. They're looking for you, and they're looking for you online. And so it's pretty amazing that you can host a virtual event right now and get better reach, better reward. Like, you're basically able to give them more, you're able to get better results, and you're able to get better revenue. And we're going to talk about all of those tonight. It's good news for the event industry that not only is it not dead, you have more options than you ever had, and you don't have to sit on the sidelines waiting for COVID to pass, because, who knows when that's going to happen. I mean, as states reopen, it's super confusing. And, an interesting aside, we were talking about this in the car on the way here this morning. Hotel after hotel is trying to figure it out. They don't know, that it's governed by local districts and, governors and all that good stuff. And they're all debating, like, is it 3 feet between each chair? Is it 6 feet between each row? Is it temperature checks as you come in the room? And nobody really has the answer. So while all this is unfolding, the good news is you don't have to wait. You could move forward with the virtual event, either your first event or your next event, and have it either outperform what you've done in the past, or if you've never done one, like, there's no better time than right now. So let's talk about what that looks like.
Well, before we do, Sonia just said that it's 4 p.m. Pacific, and I just said it's 10:14. Did I say it was 10:14? If I did, I completely misspoke. Yeah, it's 7:09 p.m. Eastern time. We are on the East Coast.
Yes.
A couple of questions. Rokon, oh my God, Barry and Blue. A couple of questions that I actually want to just knock out really quick. Somebody asked, what metrics are we using to compare event over event? So there's a few metrics that we are using to compare events year over year. Number 1, attendance. Number 2, feedback from attendees. Number 3, revenue earned from the live event itself. And then just number 4, general overall experience. We've talked, including sponsors' experience and
speakers'
experience,
networking
exactly.
experiences, coaching experiences,
Yep.
VIP experiences. So all these different layers of in-person event experience that have been virtualized, and we're getting rave reviews from. But honestly, these days, I mean, what metrics that we use that are most important is how many people registered, how many people checked in, how many people showed up, how many people stayed with us. Like, we're talking 3-day events here. So did they actually stick with us? And then many of our events are enrollment events. And that means there's some low ticket or high ticket offer, usually a high ticket offer. And do people actually buy? There may also be additional offers from sponsors or sweeper offers, that kind of thing. And are they buying? And the answer is yes, they are. So while I think it's a really troubled economy, and I think there's a lot of uncertainty, I think people are actually looking for leadership and looking for opportunities right now to change their economy. We often say in this virtual economy, experience is the new currency. And we're going to talk about what that experience looks like. But what we also do day in, day out, and we really believe in as a couple, as business owners, for our clients and for our attendees, is that with the tips, tools, strategies, and systems that our clients teach, you can create your own economy. So what's awesome is if you're an event host, you can create your own economy. And what's also awesome is if you help your audience do that, there's never been a better time for you to help them find time and money freedom, for you to help them get, connected to ways that they can create their own money and not have to wait to be unfurloughed or get their paycheck unfrozen or, get their salary back to where it was. They can actually create their own opportunity right now. And that's where you come in. So that's why we're super dedicated to this. We wanted to do this free training because there's never been a better time for you to get off the sidelines and get into the game. And if you've been waiting for COVID to pass, no need to do that. Your audience is out there and they're waiting for you.
For sure.
But before we do that, well, a lot of people get it wrong.
They do. A lot of people do get it wrong. And one of the things, in addition to the content that we're going to share with you tonight, which are 3 key things that you need to have a successful event, we are also going to share with you, and here's the hook to stay all the way through to the end, what most people are getting wrong. So we're going to wait to share that until right at the end of the webinar. We're going to be with you for about 90 minutes. But let's get in. Let's actually talk, Barry, and we've kind of hinted at it already, but let's talk about who this information ideally is for.
Yeah. So, if you are a speaker, if you are an author, if you are an influencer, if you are a knowledge broker, if you have been hosting live events, if you've been dying to host a live event, for all of those reasons, generally people who are our clients are people who are have a tribe and they are known for something. There's something you're uniquely good at, and you're using the live event platform to make a high ticket offer. And we think of a high ticket offer as a $6,000 or more coaching program or service or product that helps people get further faster, essentially. So it's either a coaching program that's helping people get there faster, cutting a check for speed, or helping to support them because they need additional support, accountability, and community and enhanced opportunities to get to the finish line. And so that's the space our clients specialize in, and most of our live events specialize in that too.
For sure. Also, BJ said he's an auctioneer. He has his first virtual event, virtual auction next week. He's excited. I think maybe she, excited and terrified. I'm excited for you. I think this platform is exciting. And
actually, can you make a note? I'm always looking for a good auctioneer. I think we need to circle BJ's information. BJ, reach out and let us know how to contact you. Do we already know that since she or he is watching?
I don't know. Events at poweredbysage.com.
Seriously, yep. We have a couple clients who are always looking for great auctioneers, so would love to get to know you better.
Absolutely. Love Paul's comment as well, that this Paul, I should be paying you to say this stuff. Hey all, this content is bigger, better than the platform, etc. Pay attention here. Let the tech worry about the tech. Agree with you 100%. So let's give you the good news. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about this, but that high ticket offer platform that a lot of our clients use from a live event perspective also is working virtually, which is really, really exciting.
And what's also exciting is that, we're going to give you, some of the names that we work with. I think that's helpful, right? We've worked with everyone from Glazer Kendi Insider Circle to Harv Ecker, Ali Brown, Fabienne Fredrickson, Stu McLaren, Dean Graziosi, Jeff Walker, the list goes on and on. Lisa Sasovich, Ryan Levesque. We have the luxury of working with some really great names in this space and helping them to dial in their live events. Over the last 16 years, we took some time to add this up. We've generated over $450 million in live event high ticket sales. So not for us, but for our clients, over $450 million. And so if you're right now thinking, well, this is only going to work if you're one of those names, know that that's not true. We're here tonight to tell you that whether you're doing doing an event for 5 people, 50 people, 500 people, or 5,000 people, it works. It works in every language. It works in every niche. It works in every country. We have tested this in multiple ways, and it works, it works, it works. So bear with us and let us give you some examples of a couple of people it's working for right now.
Yeah, so Lori Brown is somebody who I was browsing Facebook the other day. She had commented on a post that we had and said that she's already actually implemented some of the strategies that we shared on a similar broadcast.
Yeah, just a free training. She listened to it and she's like, ideas into action. Let's do this.
Exactly.
And what happened for her?
Well, she actually sent out the swag box, which is something we're going to be covering today in our show up strategies, and got amazing show up for her live event. What I loved about her story was how quickly she implemented, because she heard it and like within a couple of days she had a swag box in the mail, which is awesome. And then Jennifer, who is another person who commented on one of her posts, has done a virtual event already, and the sales from her virtual event, the revenue from her virtual event, matched her in-person event previously. So,
and that's awesome. We've known Jennifer for years. She's a really talented coach, and so she's been running her own in-person events, and she quickly pivoted to this virtual format and actually made more money, which we'd love to hear that. And we're hearing a lot of that. So, what does it come down to? I mean, a lot of people are saying, what's the difference between when you're talking live events in person versus virtual? Well,
so what we found so far is 80% of the live event is very much the same. And the in-person event versus the online event, right? The offline versus online event. They're very, very, very similar.
Like 80%, when we really dialed it down, 80% of what we do for in-person, 80% of what we do for virtual, the same. But 20% is different. And what does that come down to?
Well, the 20% that's different comes down to, number one, the tech. And then number two, the touch.
Tech and touch. If you think about it, it makes sense. Like technology has to be different and the touch points have to be different to keep people engaged. If you think back to what I said, that in a virtual economy, experience is the new currency, then of course touch is really important. Like, how do you create these interpersonal experiences so it's not just a passive watching experience, it's actually interactive, in some ways more interactive than an in-person event. Exactly. So tech and touch.
So those are two things that we're going to cover tonight. The third thing that we're going to cover tonight is show up. And here's what it comes down to. If you're going to have a successful live event, the most important thing when it comes to the success of that event is actually having your attendees show up and participate.
It's the thing that strikes fear in most hosts' heart. Like, if you ask people what their biggest fear is around a live event, it's always, will people show up? Will they register? Will they show up? And in a virtual world, the fear is that there are so many distractions and they are at home and they have to get on a plane. They don't have to come to a hotel. So it's just a little too easy to check out. And so you really do have to have a good show up strategy. And the good news is we found 4 that really work.
Exactly. And we're going to share all 4 of those today with you as well. So 3 keys: tech, register for their virtual event,
to show up.
Actually show up.
And not just for one session, for 3 full days.
Exactly.
We specialize in 3-day live events that are enrollment events with high ticket offers. And we're talking about getting them to show up for 3 full days.
And that's a big deal, especially for those of you who do webinars. I mean, I'll give you even this one as an example, because listen, what we are not talking about here, we're not actually talking about live stream, right? And that's what this is. This is a live broadcast. We're broadcasting live from our office or from our studio here in South Carolina.
But when you say virtual event, most people, let's see what they think.
Oh, that's a good
ask
question.
them. Like, when we say virtual event, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you? Just put it right into the chat. Like, you're thinking we're hosting a virtual event. What do you think the virtual event is?
Yeah. What's the
How would you define
first word that comes to mind? Go ahead and type it in the chat. And here's the thing: when it comes to creating a virtual experience or virtual live event, there's a ton of platforms to choose from, right? You have
a little overwhelming.
Yeah, it is a little bit overwhelming, and you have lots of options. You have Bizaboo, you have Socio, you've got Glisser, you've got On24, you've got Boomset, you've got Eventia, you've got Wova, you've got Sukoko, you have Brella, you've got VFairs, you've got Pathable. I
think you missed Verbella is one that's out there. I mean, there's a lot of different platforms out there. And listen, I think they're pretty cool. Like, there's some interesting stuff happening right now. Silicon Valley is abuzz right now, creating any kind of platform they can think of to allow people to interact online, given what's going on right now. But it is a little overwhelming. It is a lot complicated. And you really have to think about your host experience, your team experience, and your attendee experience. And so here's the big reveal out of all those, the one that we think works the best.
Zoom. And listen, I often say that Zoom is not terribly sexy.
I always say that simple is sexy. Zoom is simple and simple is sexy.
Yeah.
Because he's a techie and I am not. Blue would love to get online and figure it all out and try out new stuff. And that's not my thing. I'm just like, I'm super busy. Tell me where to go. Tell me how to get there. I don't have to download a bunch of stuff. I don't have to figure out a bunch of stuff. I don't have to set up a bunch of stuff. I just want to show up and do the thing, right?
Yep.
So for people like me, and there's a lot of us out there, Zoom is super simple. And, even for people who like a more complex, robust machine, we're going to talk tonight about Zoomzilla, which is how you take Zoom and really scale it. Because it can, if you're thinking that Zoom limits you to a really small number of people, we're going to bust that myth and tell you a little bit of myth busting happening, that it's possible to actually scale it to thousands of people and still keep it highly interactive, focusing on that tech and that touch that are also important in a virtual event.
Yeah, exactly. And listen, when it comes to Zoom, Zoom has a couple platforms. So we are talking specifically about Zoom Meeting, not so much Zoom Webinar. And
what's the difference for people who don't know?
So Zoom Webinar is really similar to this experience. It's one-to-many, meaning or just one-way communication.
We're broadcasting out to you.
Yeah.
You are not coming back to us other than in the chat.
Exactly.
But what would be the difference with Zoom Meeting?
Well, Zoom Meeting allows you, there's a couple things. You know what? Let's actually talk about Zoom from both the audience's perspective and then also the host's perspective.
Yeah, it's really important. Let's do that.
The first thing that I want to talk about from the audience perspective is breakouts. And breakouts is one of those features that, up until maybe, I want to say a couple months ago, felt fairly buried inside of Zoom. Not a whole lot of people knew very much about them. But at this point, the reality is a lot of people have started to interact with breakouts and started to use breakouts, which is pretty cool.
But it can be confusing because if you've been in event world for a while and you hear the word breakout, like the first time I heard it, I thought of concurrent breakouts. Like you go to an event and you break people out into different rooms, different topics, different speakers. And it's sort of that, but it's not really that. The benefit of these breakouts, of Zoom breakouts, is the fact that you can have interactions within. And so let's talk about that. What does it look like? How does it work?
Well, so what's really cool about these breakouts, first off, this feature is available at any level. So whether you have the free Zoom account all the way up to
love that, by the way.
Yeah, the
it's
higher
not like
tiered.
It's something you have to be rope-a-doped into. Like it is.
It's
super
part
simple.
it's part of their platform from start to finish.
Test it out.
Yeah.
You have to invest a lot of money. Love that.
Yep. And from there, the reason we love breakouts is because it allows people the opportunity to connect and network with each other. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a second. But the other thing that we love about Zoom Meeting from the audience perspective is this gallery view, right? The ability to see, literally up to 49 different faces on a single screen. And actually, the cool thing about Zoom is you can see and hear other people. So with this right now, you can see us, you can hear us, obviously, but you can't see or hear any of the other people in this particular event on this broadcast. All you can see right now anyway is the chat, and that's awesome, and we get to interact with the chat, which is cool. Let's see. Here. Really thought that you had to have a paid version or at least put a credit card in to do breakouts, says Mary Kay, right? Nope, you can do it just with the free version of Zoom. But the cool thing about the chat, of course, I can see you a little bit, but it's not really about creating, it's not about creating connection or community. And here's the thing. I think people come to events, having done this myself personally for about 12 years. Barry, she said it a little bit longer than that. Sage itself has been in business for about 16 years. Sage is the company that we own together. I married in, just so we're all on the same page. But the thing that I've come to realize, having been around live events for a long time now, is that people come to live events for three main reasons. They come, number one, for content. And the content is easy, right? Anybody can do content. we're doing content right now through a broadcast. So online, easy. The second part is connection and community. Those are the last two, second and third parts that people come to live events. And those tend to be a little bit harder with most online platforms. The reason why we love Zoom so much is, again, connection and community, much easier to do when you can see and hear your fellow attendee, not just the person speaking, but actually see and hear other people who are with you. Now, from there, next thing that's kind of fun is let's talk a little bit about this from the host's perspective. And I'm going to show you a couple of photos of what we have done at the studio that we've partnered with in Charlotte. And we call it Zoomzilla. And, as you can see, it allows the speaker to see and interact with a large number of attendees. So we have a bank of televisions in front of the speaker, and each of those TVs can show up to 49 different faces. We have 13 televisions total, so I can't do that math too quickly, but let's say it's about 650-ish. And as you're walking on the stage, you have the ability to see and interact with individuals the same way you do at a live event, and in some ways even better, which is pretty awesome. And then from there, we also have a big screen behind the host where we can bring up large grid views and allow us to see even more people. Makes for some great shots, but more importantly, some great interactivity with the host and his or her attendees. Also allows for panels to come up on stage. This particular one had Barry and 4 other panelists being interviewed by the host, and was pretty fun and exciting. And this is just a couple more, let's just call them glory shots. I like this picture. This picture makes me happy.
It's a good picture.
You like that picture? Yeah, that's Christian. Christian, our video editor.
Christian gets some great shots.
Christian gets some great shots.
But, this is amazing what it allows you to do. I mean, what Zoomzilla really does is give you Zoom at scale, of linking all these different rooms together so that they can be more interactive. And kind of going back to the host, I think this is so important because for most of you hosts, you thrive on the audience interaction. You thrive on seeing what their expressions are, on knowing how they're receiving your content. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the biggest challenges with the other formats is not being able to do that. With this approach, it actually gives the host the ultimate freedom to be broadcasting the message out and getting feedback back. And I think this is super important for audiences to interact with one another. Like they're getting that important connection one-to-one and one-to-many. So
here's the good news, though. I see a few of you saying, let's see, who was it? Tracy. Tracy said, that looks awesome, but I only have a computer or one computer. And here's the good news about what we're talking about, and especially interacting with Zoom. It doesn't need to be high tech, right? This can literally be as simple or as easy as your computer and a TV, which is really, really nice. And I'm going to tell you why it can be as simple as just your computer and a TV. Because quite simply, you can take your computer, have the camera that's built into most computers these days have, if your computer is, built within the last 4 or 5 years, it probably has a camera at the top of the lid, right? And you can use that along with the television, take a simple HDMI cable that's, $4 or $5, connect it to your television, put the grid view up on a nice big screen TV, have your content and your camera right here, and now all of a sudden you have a pseudo version of Zoomzilla. It can comfortably accommodate up to 300 people, and all of a sudden you've created a similar environment that we have created, just on a slightly smaller scale, but it allows you to host a virtual event where you can see and interact with your attendees, which is awesome. And as you build, right, as you kind of grow up from there, and I don't mean grow up like as you grow up, you can add on top of that. You can start with a TV and a computer. You can then add an external camera. You can then add a microphone. If you really want to get fancy, you can have 2 cameras and put a small switcher in place. And really, you know, from there, the sky's the limit. You can go all the way up to Zoomzilla and beyond. You know, one of the things.
Oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say one of the things we were talking about with the person who was at our studio yesterday doing a walkthrough was actually creating a stage that has a full wraparound LED wall in front, like big TVs that are essentially like seamless all the way across.
To be able to see like 2,400 people at a time.
Yeah.
Which is possible and amazing, and also not necessary. If you're starting out, you can start small and you can add as you go. If you're doing a fulfillment event, like a mastermind or a group coaching program, this is absolutely workable for that. So it works for both fulfillment and enrollment events. Again, really exciting. I know for a number of you who host live events, you also have coaching programs that include 1 or 2 or 3 day masterminds, and you're trying to figure out how to do that in the age of COVID. And this can be a highly interactive way for you to do that and still maintain your deliverables, possibly with even better interaction, interconnection than you had before.
Yeah. And, you know, listen, I saw JoJo said, what if you don't have a TV?
That's harder.
Yeah, you know,
it's
actually,
still doable.
It's still doable.
Harder.
You don't even need a television. You can create that with just your computer.
Yeah.
The cool thing about TVs these days is you can get a 55-inch TV for like $300. And I'm not suggesting that $300 is nothing by any stretch of the imagination, but when you consider what televisions were a few years back at that same size, they've come down drastically in price. And listen, this just may be an excuse to go buy a nice television.
And to make some money with that television. Like the goal is that that investment pays off in dividends, you know, beyond that once you host your virtual event.
Exactly. So let's talk about sales events. Nancy Rodriguez, let's actually talk about that. Let's talk about the results from 2 examples of events that we have hosted virtually. And actually, we'll give you a brief rundown on the third one that just happened this weekend. First one took place in 2019, had 300 attendees. And this year, when they went virtual, they went to 1,200 attendees registered. We walked them through a check-in process where we had 1,023 people actually check in. And each day we had between 700 and 900 people in attendance. So if you do that math, again, you're looking at 70 to 90% attendance rates from the people who actually checked in. And in 2019, they did about $600,000 in gross revenue. And in 2020, they went up to $720,000 in gross revenue, which is a 20% increase, of course, in revenue year over year. But the really cool thing is they had much higher profit because the expense associated with doing a live event virtually versus doing a live event in person is significantly less, like as much, if not more than half is. Oh my God, I always get this wrong.
So just to recap, if you can make higher gross revenue and you can have higher net revenue, it's a win-win. You know, it's significantly less expensive to put on a virtual event. So again, for those of you who have been trying to figure out how to scale, this is an easy, affordable way to do it with less liability. For those of you thinking of hosting your first live event, you've been a little nervous because you've got to get a hotel, food and beverage minimum, rental fees, room blocks, that kind of thing. You don't have all of that here. So much less risk, much less liability, much less overhead, higher gross, higher net, and more people served, which is really important. You know, we think of an event as a profit-driven payday. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is there's tons of impact in addition to the income. So the great thing with virtual is the number of people reached, the number of people served, not just the amount of money that can be made. So it's super exciting from that perspective. And again, doable for 550, 500, or 5,000 or more.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at a higher, like one that's scaled even larger.
But I also want to agree with what Karen said. Karen said it's less expensive for the attendees as well.
Yeah.
100%. That's also why we're seeing anywhere from 3 to 4 times the amount of attendees show up for these virtual events versus the in-person events. Because even a low-ticket in-person event, if it's a multi-day event and you have to fly there, you've got the cost of the flight, you have the cost of your hotel rooms,
the Uber,
you have the
food and beverage,
food and
the
beverage.
drinks at the
there's
bar.
yeah,
there's
there's
any number of things.
exactly
right?
the babysitter, the dog sitter, all sorts of stuff that you have to pay for.
And sometimes attendees get to the event, they're feeling a little tapped out, cashed out. They've been paying for all these expenses to get there. And the great thing with the virtual event is they're connecting from the comfort of their own home. But again, you have to keep them engaged, and we're going to talk about what that looks like. Before we do, let's give a second example.
For sure. So the second example in 2019 had 600 people in attendance. And this year, when they went virtual, they went to 3,000 plus people registered, which was
so the first event was 4 times more. The second event, 3 times more.
So it's interesting. The second event, the number that I didn't put on here was they actually had 1,000 people registered for their in-person event. And when they went virtual, it went from 1,000 to 3,000. So that's where Barry's getting her 3X number.
Pretty good metric.
Of those 3,000, we had 2,800 people actually check in, 2,200 to 2,400 in attendance every single day. And in 2019, they did 2.4 million approximately. And in 2020, 2.5 times that revenue from their virtual event.
Which, I think that math, by the time they ended up doing their payment plans, their pay in fulls and post-event sales, you're looking at a $7 million payday. Not bad for a weekend's worth of virtual work.
Yeah.
And, so those were the first 2 we did. And then we just did another last weekend, very similar in that we saw significantly more people registered.
Yep.
We saw similar rates of show up and stick over the course of the 3 days. And again, we had an event that outperformed its in-person counterpart a year ago.
Yep. Exactly. So let's talk about the biggest challenge. And this is, key number 3 that we're sharing today. And the biggest challenge that people have is getting attendees to actually show up. And, I think that primarily we have seen that there are 4 main keys to getting people to show up and get that attendance rate that we're talking about between 70 and 90% of your registered.
And part of that, before we go there, is because they think of it like a webinar. How many of the people, when we said...
A lot of people said webinar.
Yeah,
webinar,
like
live stream, Facebook Live. I saw one person said AI.
Oh, that's interesting.
I am curious to know a little bit more about
the next frontier.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
Exactly.
But yeah, overwhelmingly, when we ask that question, what do you think of when you think of virtual event? People say webinar. And so if you think about the 4 keys to showing up, if people think they're signing up for a 3-day webinar, that sounds really long to sit there just watching people talk to you for 3 full days without any interaction. So interactivity and experience are key. And part of how you do that are these 4 keys. The first one.
Well, actually, before I say that, I just wanted to point something out in the chat. And I'm sorry, I'm reading this because you guys are awesome. I love how you're interacting with us. And that's why I keep looking down at the computer. I'm eyeballing the chat as we're going through tonight's content. But Jared Villarreal, I think I'm saying that close to right.
I wonder if he's related to Kelly.
I don't know. Jared, are you related to Kelly? They're doing... Do you have a Kelly in your family, Jared? We're doing virtual auctions, and we're seeing nonprofits exceed their goals, and the costs are lower, allowing nonprofits to take home more money. That's very similar to the first event that we had and the third event that we had that didn't necessarily like 2.5 times revenue that like the second event that we had did, but they both did significant increases in revenue, like 20-30%, and saw their profit margins go up significantly because of the decreased costs. So pretty awesome. For sure. And that is definitely something that I really, I'm glad to see that nonprofits are taking advantage of it, because I know nonprofits especially often, really rely on nonprofits and associations rely on their meetings and events as their primary revenue source. So, all right. And Mary Kay loves our matching mics.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that was something when we put this together. I know you guys came for content, but I'm sorry, you say something like that, you're going to get a story. And when Barry and I decided to put this it was originally intended as a podcast studio, and we have yet to actually record our first podcast.
But we've used the studio a lot. We're just not using it for a podcast.
Yeah, but we were looking at a bunch of different mics, and of course we wanted one that sounded great. I hope this sounds good. You guys can tell me if it doesn't. But once we found one that sounded good, Barry's like, I want it to be pretty. So I found the black and gold, which
I think it's pretty.
Yeah, see, that's what we were going for. All right, so 4
Let's
keys.
get to the 4 keys.
Yeah, back onto content. I know. Reel them back in, she says.
And the first one is?
No recordings.
And tell us why. Why no recordings?
So let me actually be a little bit more specific on that. We recommend to our clients, and if you're going to be doing a live event, I'm going to recommend this to you as well. Don't provide recordings of your live event right up front. Primarily because it gives the people a reason to not have to show up live, right? And if they want the content, if they paid for the content, because most of these attendees are paying to come to these events, if they want the content, they need to show up for it. Much like a live event, if you don't go into the ballroom, you don't get the content, right? You don't oftentimes, if you come down late and walk to the back table and say, hey, could I get a recording of this morning's opening keynote? I wasn't able to make it because I fell asleep. No, that's not how it works, right? At live events, you show up, you participate, and that's how you get the content. So again, no recordings. And there is an exception to that. We do allow, or we do say to our clients that, doing a VIP package of some sort where the recordings are available, 30 to 60 days in the future is a good idea.
They can revisit the amazing content. They just can't do it right away. And again, it distinguishes it from not being a webinar, because webinars, you think of getting the recording, you think of getting the replay. And so by drawing a line in the sand right away and saying no recordings, no replays, unless possibly you have a VIP experience or all access experience where you allow them the opportunity with the caveat that it's at least 30 days later. We think the sweet spot is 30 to 60 days. You can always deliver it sooner than that, but you don't want the expectation to be, oh yeah, next week I'm getting this, and so I'll just skip this session or this day or that day, and I'll catch it on the recording.
Exactly. So that's the first key. The second one, and I saw a few of you say, I want a swag box. So the second one is the swag box. Yeah. And it's something that we recommend our clients do who are hosting live events for a couple of reasons. These swag boxes that we're sending out tend to include a journal of some kind, some printed materials, something that is, of educational value and ties into the live event, maybe a pen, maybe some stickers, maybe a couple of other cute things, couple gifts, a little something from me to you kind of thing. And, it makes the event real, right? It makes it tactile, something that they can touch, something that they can, smell and feel, really. Whereas a virtual event where it's just ones and zeros, it's just bits and bytes, it doesn't have the same realness. But when you send them this swag box that shows up a couple days or the day of the live event, what is the best reminder that you could possibly have to show up to a webinar or to show up to a virtual event? Not an email. Yeah. FedEx guy knocking on the door, handing you a package that says, here you go. And it's like, oh, I've got that virtual event today. Awesome. Let's go show up. So
it's not feeling like a webinar anymore. You actually got product delivered to your door, and when you open it, not only does it feel like reciprocity because you've gotten these awesome gifts, but it also piques your interest. When you look inside, you're thinking, this is great, and how are we going to use this, and what are we going to do with this? So it amps up the curiosity and the reciprocity, which means people are more likely to show up.
Yeah, absolutely. So swag box, big thing. And
you don't have to spend a ton of money on it. No. I think, just to be clear, we mentioned a number of things you can do, but you can keep it super simple. It might be one gift and there might be a raffle ticket inside, something simple like that, and a simple workbook. It doesn't have to be an expensive journal. So exactly. A lot of different ways to do that.
Absolutely. And, Sue said, maybe not for a nonprofit with not a whole heck of a lot of money. I get that. But Randall, a couple of comments later, said, what about having a sponsor support you with your swag box?
We just did that, actually. We have a client that's a nonprofit trade association. Mm-hmm. They've been with us from the very first day we opened our doors, and they just switched over to having basically cocktails and conversation. It's a 5-series webinar every other week, and it's for a specialized group. They have 4 sponsors. The sponsors underwrote the cost of not only the swag box that was sent out, but the tech that went into it. And everybody walks away happy. The association's delivering to its members. The sponsors are getting more interactive connectivity. The attendees are being served from home, and they're not missing that all-important connection and community that means so much to a trade association. Yeah. It's absolutely doable. Great suggestion.
For sure. So there's something to think about from a swag box perspective. Helps you pay for it, but then also, just as importantly, if not probably more importantly, get your attendees to actually show up. Now, third thing that we do, and again, this third thing I think is incredibly key for a few reasons. It's called the in-person check-in. And the in-person check-in, that's something that happens at live events all the time, right? You oftentimes, when you go to a live event, you walk up to the registration desk, you give them your name, maybe you show your ID, you get your badge, you get a lanyard, you throw that on, they give you a little swag bag, and all of a sudden you're at your conference and you've got all the stuff that you need to actually show up the next day for your event. Well, we do the same thing virtually.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, here's the thing. You would never allow someone to walk into your ballroom without having registered, right? I mean, you never go to a live event where you're not required to register or get a badge so people know you're with the event before you walk in the doors. So why would you allow that to happen in your virtual event? I think it's really important to set the tone that this is different. It's not just clicking a link and showing up whenever you want to. And that tech check, that in-person check-in allows you to check out technology, walk them through Zoom, make sure they know how to have cameras on, mute, unmute, raise a hand, put a hand down, get into the chat. Most people know how to use Zoom, but in the off chance they don't, you want to make sure that they're covered and you don't waste all important start moments with a lot of tech challenges. But it also allows you to set the expectation with the audience. We're going to have cameras on. The host is going to be able to see you. So plan to show up ready with your camera on. This is how you turn your camera on. This is how you mute and unmute. And the other piece of it is it's that connectivity with your team. That in-person check-in means your team members are spending a couple minutes with each person and setting the tone for what the week's going to be like, warming them up, asking where they're from, asking what they're most excited about. They love that. You can see them literally just kind of warm up over the course of this registration and tech check. And at the end, it's like, don't forget, our doors open a half hour early. We're going to start at this time tomorrow. We've got some important, whatever it is, give them a couple highlights. They're so much more likely to show up. It's actually really fun.
It is. And I have to tell you, I just saw something that I am going to steal as an idea. I am definitely going to repurpose this one. Julie Marie said possibly an early bird prize for the first 50 to check in, get additional swag.
Love that.
And I love that idea. And it actually ties in to the fourth thing that we do. And I'll talk to that in a second, which is gamification, or what we now call, thanks to Julie Helmerich, funification. So, and I'll get into that in just a moment, but before we wrap on the in-person check-in, a few people asking, that sounds like it's staff intensive. And yes, it can be. But if depends on the size of your event. For 3,000, check in 3,000 people, we had 8 people helping us over the course of 2 days. If I think about what we do in person for an event of that size, I probably use double that staff. Yeah. So the check-in process, while yes, can be intensive, is really, really important for a couple of reasons. Number one, and this is the reason that we decided to do, or we wanted to do it up front, was you want to make sure that you have as few technology issues as possible when you first go and start your live virtual event, which means you don't want to spend the first 30 minutes with people going, I can't hear you. How do I turn on my camera? I can't, how do I unmute myself? How do I get into Zoom? You want to try and knock out all of those issues before the event takes place, which is why we did the virtual tech check, which essentially was sending them a link to join a Zoom meeting in the end. That's what it really boils down to talk with a member of our team, and allows them to get into a Zoom meeting and interact with the interface before the event even takes place. That's why we did it up front. Why we're going to actually keep doing it is it really speaks more to the connection and the community aspect. Like Barry was saying, the ability to have people connect to our team and actually connect to each other, right? Because sometimes you have 2 people in the room and all of a sudden you're checking 2 people in at the same time and you're like, hey, Kathy, this is Barry. Barry, meet Kathy. Kathy, where are you from? Barry, where are you from? Awesome. Well, you guys, and all of a sudden you have 2 people who've made a connection, right? And again, that's one of the reasons that people come to live events. So in-person check-in, really key.
Yes.
You want to talk about funification?
Yeah, let's do this. So, the fourth thing that we think really works is what many people refer to as gamification. We're not huge fans of the word gamification because it's a little trendy a few years ago. I think people have their own kind of ideas about what gamification might be, and we're trying to redefine that. But also, it feels kind of like something you're doing to someone, like gaming the system. What we're really talking about is funification, which is introducing a sense of fun to the event, but more importantly, giving them a reason to show up, get interactive, and stick around. And the reason for that is they're getting point rewards for taking actions you want them to take. So if you think about it, along the course of a 3-day event, there are all kinds of things that you want them to do. You want them to do an exercise. You want them to be there at door opening. You want them to film a video. You want them to submit a testimonial. You want them to tweet in, social media and give you a shout out. Any actions that you want them to take, you can actually build into the dashboard and gamify. Add an element of funify it, add an element of funification. Guaranteed, they're going to love it. They're going to start talking to each other about it. They're going to start enrolling others into doing it. And then they're going to start competing to get to the top of the leaderboard. And here's the best part. In order to get the rewards, they have to be there in person. You can pluck different numbers, like you can come back from a break and say, I want to pull a number 79 on the leaderboard, you're getting a prize. Number 125 on the leaderboard, you're getting a prize. And then, of course, there's the all-important points rewards. At the end, you're rewarding the people at the top of the leaderboard with something that you don't sell. That's key. Something that you don't sell. You don't competing with your offer, but something that's highly desired. And 9 times out of 10, that costs you nothing more than time. Giving them a call with you or giving them some type of special strategy session, something they really value, doesn't cost you anything, but gets them highly engaged in competing for that grand prize.
Yeah. Now, Barry mentioned something that we do for our clients when we do a virtual event, which is a dashboard. And that's it's a custom website that, we have our team build out, and it can be a little complicated. But much like the tech component, doesn't have to be Zoomzilla. It can just be as simple as your computer and a television, or even just your computer for those of you, JoJo, who don't have a TV. But I also want you to think of how you can potentially reward your attendees for taking the actions you want them to take without the need for high tech. And this can really be as simple as setting up a free Facebook group, and then doing things like asking your attendees to post a picture of where they're learning from today, or go onto the Facebook group and answer a question or answer a poll. Do you agree with this? Yes or no, right? And then rewarding them for taking that action. How do you reward them? Again, I'm going to give you the super low tech option.
Before you do, post in the chat, like what are the actions you would most want to reward? Like if you had a dashboard and you could funify your event, what are the actions you want your attendees to take that you would want to reward them for taking?
Yeah. So where was I going after that?
You're going with dashboard. It can be simple. I think you're going to talk Gammy Press.
Oh, no. I wasn't actually. No, I wasn't going to go to that. I will say that in just a moment. But going back to the simple, right? Letting them post a thing on the free Facebook group. Now, how do you reward them for that? Again, keeping this low tech, write out their names on pieces of paper, throw them into a fishbowl, and pick out a name. You've now gamified the process with zero technology. So for those of you thinking to yourself, I have no time for all of this technobabble stuff, right? Or I don't want to create a dashboard. You don't need to.
I don't have time to put that together.
Yeah.
Go with a raffle ticket. Go with a good, simple, take the action, write it down, slip a paper in the fishbowl. It could be that simple.
Exactly. And I love some of this, Peggy, who I think must be, possibly a musician, talking about, Stacy, link to unreleased music, right? If you're a musician and that's the reward that you want to give them. I love that idea. I think that's a great way to go. So, funification can be as complicated or as simple as you want it to be. And the bottom line is it comes down to rewarding your attendees for the actions that you really want them to take anyway, right? That's really what it comes down to. For us, somebody asked, how do you create a leaderboard? I'm going to give you a little bit, and I'll talk to you about how you could potentially learn more from us about that in just a moment. But we use for our dashboard, they're built on top of WordPress, and we use a plugin for WordPress called GamiPress, G-A-M-I Press. There are a couple of them out there. If you just look for gamification plugins, you'll find a few options. The one we use is that. I think it works really, really well, and it allows us to track actions. So when somebody logs in, we can give them points. When somebody clicks on the link that we want them to click on to go to the Zoom meeting, we give them points. When somebody submits an exercise that that we've given as part of the event, we give them points, and then we reward those point getters. So there you go. There's some ideas. Another thing, actually, you mentioned it briefly, but why don't you talk about the raffle ticket that we did with Dylan?
Yeah, the very first time we introduced a virtual event, we wanted to keep it fairly simple. And so we literally glue dotted a raffle ticket, like a good old standard raffle ticket, like you buy at Office Depot, to the welcome letter that went in every single swag box. For our internationals that weren't going to get the boxes, we wrote their names down and had them in a fishbowl. So that fishbowl had the names of the internationals and the raffle tickets, the second half of the raffle ticket for every single person registered for the event. And when they showed back up on time, we pulled a raffle ticket, had to be present to win. We read it out, and we gave away awesome swag, special gifts, gift cards. They absolutely loved it. So again, remember that the purpose is to get them to take action, and the purpose is to get them to show up. Getting back to the intent of these four, to show up and to stay with you, not just for one session, but for all the sessions over the course of 3 days. It could be that simple, just a raffle ticket.
For sure. So with that, let's actually dive into one last story, because some of the stories that we've told have been pretty grand, right? Grand in terms of $700,000 in revenue.
$7 million.
Yeah, $7 million in revenue, $1.7 million in revenue. Those are big numbers. But what if you're just starting out? Maybe you can only get 30 people to your live event. Let me tell you about Kelly Schaefer. And Kelly had a live event that was scheduled for end of April. Yeah. And much like the rest of us, her live event had to be postponed or canceled.
And her people really need her. I mean, Kelly is an awesome coach to concierges. They're being especially hit hard in this COVID epidemic, a pandemic. And so they really need her. And they were looking forward to this in-person event. And then her venue told her they had to cancel due to COVID. So she had a quick decision to make. Does she postpone till next year? Does she cancel forever? Or does she pivot and have a virtual event?
And here's the good news. She decided to pivot, host a virtual event, just a one-day event. She did this in about less than 2 weeks. She had 28 people in attendance. At the end of the event, she made a high-ticket offer for $2,000. And she had 6 of those people take her up on the offer for $2,000. And pretty awesome, because she walked away with $12,000 in revenue from her live event.
$12K in a day.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's the thing. $12K in a day that she can wash, rinse, repeat. So this is now a system that she can repeat over and over again to make money for herself during this time, but also to reach out to her students and give them the content connection community that they really need. They're craving that right now. So more people served and more revenue generated. And each of those people she's helping, they're going to be able to serve people and they're going to be able to generate revenue. So the ripple effect of that is huge. And you touched on one thing I think is really important, and it's kind of a consistent theme. The first virtual event we had 3 weeks to put together.
Yep.
The second virtual event we had 4 weeks to put together. The third virtual event we had less than 2 weeks to put together, and Kelly put her event together in less than 2 weeks. So really important for you to know. What's also great about a virtual event is you don't need that long runway that you need with in person, because people aren't having to book hotel and travel and step away and get people to take care of their kids while they're gone and that kind of thing. So super easy to launch this super quickly.
Yeah. Which is really amazing. The cool thing about virtual versus live, and we absolutely love live events, right? That's our core. It's at our core, what we are and what we do are, everything live events. But the interesting thing about live events is they can be a little scary, right? If you're going to have an event for a few hundred people and you're going to host it at a hotel, you're going to write your name or basically sign your life away to a certain extent with a hotel if you're not careful. And it can be a very scary moment, because if you don't fill your live event, then you owe a good amount of money. So there's a little bit of friction involved with live events. And I know a lot of you want to do them, but they can be a little scary. Virtual makes it so much easier because you don't have that big hotel contract that you have to sign. You don't have your food and beverage costs. You don't have a whole bunch of travel expenses where maybe you don't live in the city that the event's taking place in, so you have to get on a plane and stay there for a week. You don't have to bring your team in because it can all be done virtually. So
if it's your first event, it's a great stepping stone as you're getting ready. You know, if your dream has been in person, you're thinking, I don't love virtual as much as in person. This can be an amazing way to strengthen that muscle, to get your high ticket offer out there, to be testing your offer, to be interacting with your community. And when we're able to do in-person events again, you're going to be primed and ready to go. Because remember, 80% is the same. The 20% that's different, the tech and the touch, fall away when you go from virtual back into in-person. So it's a really amazing opportunity.
it is. And, you know, I think much like the slide that you just saw a moment ago said, I just imagine what you could do, right? Imagine what you could do with this information if you took action and decided to host your first live event mid-June. You know, could you put 50 people in a room? Could you make a high ticket offer for $2,000 to $3,000 and sell 5 to 10 of them into that? And then serve those people at a high level for the next year and help them to achieve the goals that they want to achieve in their life and their business? I mean, that's what you're here to do. That's what, that's what live events and the live event model can help you accomplish, which is why I think it's so exciting that these events are working virtually. So,
yes.
With that, I know we said we were going to share the single biggest mistake that people make when it comes to live events, and we're going to do that. But first, I want to invite you. I want to invite you to something that Barry and I are doing May 29th through the 31st of this year. Yep, it's in about 10 days or so. And it is called The Virtual Event
on Virtual Events.
Exactly. And it's a live event. It's a 3-day event. May 29th through the 31st. It's going to be 3 full days, starting at 11 o'clock in the morning, going till 7:30, 8 o'clock at night on day 1 and day 2, going till about 5 o'clock at night on day 3. We are going to have breaks built in, so you'll have a mid-morning break, a mid-afternoon break, and then a lunch break. But these are going to be long days. We're going to do a deep dive, not only on everything that we covered today, but we're going to go even deeper on some of the technology and the strategy and the outcomes that we are helping our clients create and how you can do the same thing. So we've actually broken these 3 days down into three core themes.
Yeah, the first one we're going to be talking about on day 1 is strategize. You know, at Sage, we talk all the time about strategy first. In fact, it's in our name, strategic advice for growing events. That's where Sage came from. And, you know, we really believe in putting the strategy first. On day 1, we're going to be digging deep on your big why, your avatar, what we think of as your right fit client, your profit pyramid, how you design your high ticket offer. Like all of those things tie in together. You want to have a sense of what you're selling and who you're selling it to so that you can fill the room with the right people. If you know what you're selling, it's super easy to reverse engineer everything so that the structure does the selling for you. So we'd be talking a lot about strategy. And again, a lot of this that we're covering, 80% of it is going to apply to your virtual event and your in-person event. So the really great thing about day 1 is whether you love in-person or you're learning virtual or you want to do a combination of the two, everything we're teaching you there works in both.
Yep.
Day 2?
Day 2, we're going to be talking about virtualize. And that's where you take all of the different pieces and parts that you love about in-person live events and use them in your virtual event and to see whether or not it works.
Virtualize them. Like,
exactly.
How do you take something you love in person and virtualize it for a virtual event? And, you know, in many cases, it's easier than you think. We're going to talk about that. But another piece of it is it's sometimes more interactive than you think. I think the big aha moment from virtual events is some of what we're virtualizing is delivering a better result than it did in person. And some of it we're going to be taking back to in-person events because we like it so much. In fact, I think that says virtual Z. It's like, you know, it could be virtualize or it could be, you could virtual Z it. It's a virtual Z.
I say let's virtual. I could have sworn I fixed that.
So anyway, that is virtualized. And then don't forget to talk about, because I think people really want to know about this, that on day 2, you're going to be talking about the tech stack.
Well, actually, tech stack is day 1. Day 2, we're going to talk about filling the event. That's the part that people really want to know about.
Got it.
So we're going to be talking about 7 different ways that you can market your live events. We're also going to be talking about how you can monetize your live events, because we've been talking a lot about high ticket offer today, but there's a lot of other ways that you can do it. There's ticket sales, there's sponsorship, there's speaker splits, there's guest speakers. We're going to be talking about a lot of those and how you can take a look at your live event and actually make it a revenue generating opportunity for you and your business. So day 3, Barry Baumgardner.
Actualize.
Not actual Z.
Actualize. And for actualize, we're actually going to be talking, we're going to be talking about how you put your program at a glance together. That's your agenda for the event. And I know some of you want to do a 1-day. You're not quite ready for a 3-day. Others want to do a 3-day. We're going to talk about 1 and 3 and why they work better than a 2 and exactly how to design them. We're also going to talk about your production timeline, what you need to put in place to get this done on schedule and on budget, and then what kind of team you need to have. You know, how do you put your team in place? What roles do they need to play? And how do you prepare and train them so that they're in really good shape for this event to support you as the host so that you're not stressed out going into your virtual live event for the first or the next time?
Yeah. Now, with all that, you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, that's all fine and dandy, but how much is it? And, you know, when we decided to do this, in fact, a good friend of ours and somebody we've known for a few years, Reed Tracy with Hay House, called and said, after he saw our first virtual event, he said, oh my gosh, you guys have got to do this. You've got to teach people how to do this because there's only so many live events that you can actually do. And there are people who need this information. So for the love, host a live event and teach people how to do it. So we went out to our network and said, how, because we don't tend to do this ourselves, right? We do this for other people. And we said, how much should we be charging for this? And they said, well, we think you should do this for between $5,000 and $10,000. And if you did that, we would actually even send our team to go and do that. So with that, we've decided to do it, of course. And I want to make this a pretty easy offer or a pretty easy opportunity for you to say yes to joining us. So we're including tonight 2 bonuses that you can get along with your registration. So bonus number 1 is something called the Coaching Zone. And it is a mini course, a 12-part mini course that Barry's put together. We sell it for $997. And it teaches people who have coaches how to integrate their coaches into their live events to increase engagement and increase enrollment in their high ticket offer through their coaches.
Yeah. So, you know, it's one of the most commonly asked questions we get. If I want to integrate strategy sessions or coaches into a live event, and again, this works in person and this works in virtual. There are minor tweaks in the tech and the touch to how you take it from in person to take it to virtual, but 80% is the same. And we're walking you through the details of that. How do you design a coaching zone? How do you staff a coaching zone? How do you fill strategy sessions? How do you script strategy conversations? How do you close in strategy conversations? Like basically, what are all the details that have to go into place to make a coaching zone a reality, whether you have 2 coaches, 20 coaches, or more? And we've done it for all of that. And every one of our virtual events has had a coaching zone component, in part because it so enhances the engagement. There's a big return on engagement, ROE, as we like to say. Mm-hmm. So mastering a coaching zone, whether it's your first event or your next one, allows you the opportunity to have more high touch with your attendees, give them really great impact, give them really great strategy on how to implement all the things you're teaching. And then, of course, if it's appropriate, it gives them the opportunity to actually buy into the high ticket offer that you're making. So it's a revenue generating opportunity as well. Impact and income, purpose and payday married together.
For sure. So the next bonus number 2 that we're including is a product called Overcoming Objections. And it's something that we sell for $1997. And Barry, tell them a little bit about this, because this for me is probably one of the most valuable things that you do for our clients, that we do for our clients.
Well, thank you. I mean, over the last 16 years, we've spent a lot of time at back tables helping to support people in making a decision about a high ticket offer. And what we learned was so often the host and a lot of times the team are a little intimidated by the types of objections that they're hearing when you make a high ticket offer. And what we've realized is that they really come down to 5 things: time, money, spouse, fear, shame, and self-doubt. Those are the 5. So again, time, money, spouse, fear, shame, and self-doubt. So once we realize that, and we're a service-based company, like our goal is to serve people before we sell them. We want to make it easy for the attendee to say yes to themselves before they to us. And we want to make it easy for the team to be able to talk to them and talk them through how to make the right decision for them. Not everyone is going to buy in your room, but for the ones who are super interested in your program and are debating, do they have enough time, or can they afford to do it, or can they get their spouse or their business partner on board, or it's the first time they've ever made an investment like this, they're afraid. Or the last time they made this investment, it didn't work and they're ashamed. All of those things come up regularly at back tables and in coaching zones, incidentally. And so we put together this training, which is essentially a mini course in what those objections are, how to serve them, how to help the people who are facing that objection, and how to ultimately get them over that objection if it's the right time for them. We think of it as, if not you, who, if not now, when, and making it easy for them to say yes, like, yes, I want to do it. And yes, this is the time. So we'll walk you through all of that. And again, it's probably one of the most valuable things that we offer as a company, and an enrollment skill that you need to know if you're going to be offering enrollment events, right? Enrollment theory is at the heart of everything we do, learning how to get attendees to give themselves permission to say yes to the big dream that they have for themselves.
For sure. So all of that comes to, a value of about $8,000 if you go on the low end of what our client said we should be selling the registration for this event for. So the number that we came up with as we were thinking about this, because we felt that $8,000 was obviously a little bit too much, especially right now.
Seems a little steep, especially right now.
Yeah. Was $997.
And then we talked about it and we're like, if there's any way to make this super affordable for our audience, everyone's debating what is a virtual event. Everyone's debating how do you do a virtual event. There's only so many weeks in our calendar. There's only so many times we can be in the studio. So let's make it easy for other people to take what we have learned and apply it to their business. So we want to give you an opportunity that you'll never see again. This is like a best offer, unprecedented offer for an unprecedented time. And it's just $97. So all of that value, the full 3 days, the swag box, of course, the bonus with the coaching zone, the bonus on how to overcome objections, over $8,000 worth of value easily, is just $97. And the way we looked at it is if you are making a low ticket or a high ticket offer and you apply these strategies, you should be able to cover the cost of $97 pretty easily. Like, it's kind of a no-brainer that you'll be able to cover this cost.
And beyond that, I think it's exciting because these are all skills that not only will you be able to use virtually, but if you decide that you want to then take the leap and do a live event, that's the next step. That's the next thing that you're going to be able to do. And the skills that you're going to be learning over the course of these 3 days are going to be able to apply to that. So head on over to pbsage.com/TVE, pbsage.com/TVE.
For the virtual event. So powered by sage.com/the virtual event. That's what those initials stand for. Super easy to remember. And I think we've had some reminder about not putting it, how do they paste it in versus type it in? I know we've had some issues with that.
I'll drop it into the chat just so that you can put it there as well. Let's see.
So pbsage.com/TVE. It's May 29th through the 31st. Strategize, virtualize, and actualize. We're going to be walking you through all three. And what's really cool about this, in your swag box is a workbook. We're going to be filling that out together over the course of the 3 days. And when you leave, you have your virtual event blueprint done. Yep. And so all the things that you need to do to make this a reality, to take these ideas and put them into action, are done. Highly interactive. You're going to have time to workbook. You're going to have time to interact and share with other people who are going through the same thing, which we find is a great way to get work done, because not only are you getting it done in the moment, but as you talk about it, it becomes more real. You're going to experience all the things that we've talked about. You're going to go through registration. You're going to go through gamification, funification. You're going to have a leaderboard. You're going to be able to experience content. You're going to go into breakouts. You're going to have sponsors. You'll get to see exactly how sponsorship works. You're going to have VIP experiences, which is something else that we talk about in revenue generation. So you do have that opportunity to do that as well. Mm-hmm. So all of those things are encompassed in the virtual event. So not only do you learn how to do it, you actually get to experience it as an attendee, which makes it so much easier for you to think about how to apply it to your own event.
For sure. So I'd love for you to join us May 29th through the 31st. But if you don't, we do still have about 15 minutes or so left. We've gone
And
a
we
little
have
bit.
one thing that we promised.
We do. So if you do have any questions that you'd like us to try and tackle tonight, please go ahead and post them in here. Is this U.S. or Canadian? Any taxes? U.S. and no. Let's see. Are you planning a second opportunity for those that desire to attend but unable to attend May 29th through the 31st? Sandra, great question. As of right now, we don't have plans to do this again. If it goes well, I'm sure we will. But as of right now, we have that day or those dates as the plan. So go ahead and post any questions that you have, and let's dive into the thing that most events that are going virtual are getting wrong right now. And it really boils down to the things that you answered when we asked the question, what do you see? What do you see as, or what's the word that comes to mind when we say virtual event? And a lot of you said webinar, a lot of you said Facebook live stream, things like that. And I think the biggest mistake that people are making right now, Barry Baumgardner, is they are thinking of these live events as webinars or live streams or Facebook Lives that are essentially extended over 1, 2, or 3 days. And the biggest challenge,
like the design of the 3 days, they're designing it like a bunch of webinars strung together.
Yep.
So it's just a long series of webinars versus having the flow and the interactivity and the exercises and the workbooking and the breakouts that you need to really maintain that interactivity and keep them for 3 full days. And importantly, if it's going to be an enrollment event, to keep them with you and have them want more from you beyond the event.
Yeah. So really, when you come down to your live event, honestly, if you do not come to the virtual event on virtual events, May 29th through the 31st for only $97, which I would totally get. But you do decide to do a virtual event, which again, I hope you do, because these are really, I think, exciting times. A little scary, of course, for many of us, especially those of you, and I see there's a bunch of you who actually rely on the event industry as your primary source of income. I mean, you're looking at 2 people who rely exclusively on live events as our revenue source, right? Only in the last 2 months have we pivoted to virtual. Up until that point, truthfully, had you said to us, do you think that you could accomplish the same thing, get the same results with a virtual event? I would have looked at you and said, no, of course not. Don't be crazy. That's just insanity. But I have to find who the original person who said this is. Actually, if you guys know the answer to this, who said what I'm about to quote, which is that necessity is the mother of invention, right? And when all you can do is either go forward and figure it out, or wave a white flag and say, I surrender, and crawl up into a little ball and hope at one point that things come back to normal, we chose to get up and go and figure this thing out. And I think we've learned a lot about this. We're seeing a tremendous amount of success with our clients, and we want to be able to share what we've learned with you guys, because there's only so many live events that we can do. And, the goal of this event is not actually to get you to then have us produce your live event. We want to give you the tools that you need to produce your own live events and to do them successfully. So there you go.
And, I think it's just a quick reminder, what goes along with that is that virtual events are live events. I think it's really important to remember that. Kind of goes back to the beginning of the broadcast. I mean, the way we've really started to see it in our company is that, we live, love, and leverage live events, and live events can be in person, or they can be virtual. They can be offline, or they can be online. And again, I think there's so much power in that for you, because everything you're learning now, you're embracing right now. If you decide to go with virtual events, you can apply back to in person when they come back, because they absolutely will. And so it's a really amazing opportunity that means that you don't have to sit on the sidelines. You don't have to wait. You don't have to live in fear. You don't have to wonder when we're coming back. You can go ahead and keep your company and your business and your impact and your income moving with virtual events. And then you can quickly pivot back to in person, or do both. And I think there's going to be some semblance of that we return to some kind of new normal, I think virtual events have become so successful, and we're going to continue to see that you're going to see people doing both. Like we already have clients asking us the first two who did a virtual event said next year we want to do our in-person and we want to do virtual because it's such an effective medium. So to me, that's really exciting. I mean, I don't think that we've seen this much innovation in our industry in a really long time. Everyone's talking about it. There's a lot of collaboration happening, which I love. Everyone's supporting one another and talking behind the scenes about how to make virtual events work even better. Every day there's a new idea. Every day there's a new innovation. We haven't seen that in a while. And so it's a really great time to be us, and I think another quote, an Albert Einstein quote I really love is, in every difficulty lies opportunity. And I think that's what's happening right now. For sure, there's, you can't minimize the difficulty of COVID and, the horror that is COVID. And we've not seen anything like that in our generation, I think.
Yeah.
But the fact that there is a bright side to this, there is possibility in this, there is opportunity in this without being opportunistic. And, I think something to just remember is that your audiences need you. Like, you got into the live event business because you have great ideas, because you want to share, because you want to have an impact, because you're driven by your purpose, and because you want a big payday. And the great news is you can do all of those things right now.
For sure. A few people asked how many people were on this particular broadcast. Well, so we peaked, here's exact numbers, at 384 people with us concurrently. And you know what? This is actually really interesting because when it comes down to it, when we're talking about live events and the show up rate that we're getting, the show up rate that we got for this was about 25% approximately of the people who said that they were interested in doing this, much like you did, dropped your email address and your name into a form and said, yes, I would like to show up. And then we sent you reminder emails. We didn't do a swag box, but you can be sure there'll be a swag box for the May 29th through the 31st virtual event on virtual events. But that number is a pretty low number. We're hoping, and you should as well, for higher turnout to your actual in-person event. We see what we're doing tonight really more as a webinar or as a live stream or,
live cast,
exactly,
whatever you want to call it.
Exactly.
Very different from the virtual event experience that you'll experience the 29th through the 31st, where it's using the Zoom platform and highly interactive.
Yeah, we are 100% going to be, what's the expression, taking our own medicine. Everything that we recommend others do in their live events, everything that we talked about tonight, we're going to be doing live in person for you. So we'll be demoing it as well as teaching it. It looks like necessity is the mother of invention is usually ascribed to Richard Frank, who used it in his book Northern Memoirs around 1658. Wow, that's an old one.
It is oldie but a goodie.
Oldie but a goodie. That's what they said. All right, so let me pop back to the chat, see if there are any questions. I would like information about how to do virtual trade shows. Perry, awesome question. We're going to have some sponsors actually for the virtual event on virtual events. We have 4 vendors who will be demoing the vendor booth capabilities of what you could potentially do. I do think that, true trade shows, the big ones, right? Like 1,000 trade shows or 1,000 booths and 50,000 people. I don't know that you're going to see CES or some of the big mega shows go virtual in the same way that we're talking about. What we're really talking about right now is conferences, right? Educational conferences, seminars, workshops. Exactly. Those are really the types of events that we're talking about. I saw a few people ask about music festivals and
theater. I saw
and
some
theater. Exactly. Yeah. That's not quite what we're talking about. Those are awesome events, and I actually can't wait to go to my next concert. I miss it. We were really excited because we were finally going to be home in June this particular month. And because in the month of June here in Myrtle Beach, they have the Carolina Country Music Festival, which, yeehaw, But that, of course, got canceled.
Yeah, some of the best acts in country business or country music come to that. We are always traveling and on the road. We were going to be here this year, and now, thank you, COVID, it's canceled. So, to Blue's point, I think there will be solutions that come out of this that will work for theater, that will work for trade shows, that will work for music festivals. But to be fair, it's not exactly what we're talking about here. These are 3-day conferences, seminars, and workshops that are educational in nature, often that have an enrollment component. And typically the sponsors are highlighted, like a curated group of resources that we're highlighting with guest speakers, with panels, that kind of thing, with strategy sessions, with VIP experiences. So if you're in the business of doing those type of events, you either are doing them and are looking to take them virtual, or you've always wanted to do them and virtual is a new opportunity for you. The virtual event on virtual events is the perfect opportunity to learn exactly how to do it.
Yeah. Stanley says that many of the things that we're talking about too actually do translate to the pivot for live arts. So
Amazing.
Stanley, I'm glad that you can see that. I hope that
I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. Erica and somebody else actually posted it. I just missed the name. Sorry about that. Asked what was the one thing that most people get wrong. And that's that they're not looking at these virtual events like live events. They're looking at them more like webinars that are extended. So here's what I mean by that. When you plan a live event, you have a whole bunch of things that you do, right? You think about registration. You think about what the swag is that they're going to get when they show up. You think about printed materials. You think about bathroom breaks and how long you're going to be. And you think about food. And you approach this like you have your attendees as happy hostages, right? They're with you for 3 days and or 2 days or 1 day, however long your event is, and you're going to have fun with them and you're going to interact with them and you're going to network and you're going to have content, connection, community, all those things. And then when you go virtual, so many people just turn it into a webinar. And listen, what we're doing right now is fine, and it's great for the format that we've chosen for tonight. But if we were to translate this, and can you possibly see this being a format to be used for 3 days?
I think it would be really hard.
I think
it would be hard for us.
I think it would be hard for us as the hosts.
And it would be hard for you as the attendees.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly. So that's where what people are getting wrong. They're just taking this format and they're extending it. And in order to get it right, you really need to introduce the ability to have connection and community. That's where Zoom comes in, which we talked about as the platform of choice earlier. That's where breakouts come in. That's where gallery view comes in. That's where being able to talk to and hear your audience, not just see them in a chat, which is awesome, but also be able to actually see them in person. So that's kind of where what we think most people who do virtual events are getting wrong, which is just taking a webinar format and extending it. It doesn't work. So, Barry Baumgartner, I don't see very many other questions. Jill agrees with us. She says that some of these things are geared towards the arts. Again, Jill, awesome. Love that. I say that because I like to be clear, right? I think a lot of this stuff can apply to a lot of different venues. We're specifically talking about a certain niche that we work within. But so much of this can, I believe, be applied to a lot of different areas. Let's see. Matt says we're not creating urgency. Should we? You want to create urgency, Barry?
Well, I was going to say earlier, if you don't register by Friday, you absolutely won't get a swag box.
Yes.
And based on our current registrations, I think we might be coming close to hitting a limit on swag boxes.
Yep.
So, and let's see, I think they're pretty awesome.
They
I had
are.
a budget. I doubled it.
You did.
I really wanted them to be awesome swag boxes because we preach swag. I don't know if that's the urgency you're looking for, but if you're looking for a swag box, the sooner you register, the more likely you are to be guaranteed that, because we set a certain number. We had to go to print last week in order to have them ready to ship this week. And so if you'd like to be included in that, you absolutely should claim your ticket now. And listen, we're not putting big limiters and that kind of thing because we've already given you 2 amazing bonuses worth $3,000. Here's the reality. If you close one objection using what would be valued at $2,000 course and you have a low or a high ticket offer, you're going to more than make your money back on that, but you're only paying $97. And the same thing with the coaching zone. If you're thinking about doing a coaching zone and having strategy sessions, it is one of the best ways to convert people into being a raving fan, right? And that's a big piece of this, is increasing engagement, getting to know your audience, and then ultimately, if it's right for them, enrolling them, of course. So again, really high revenue potential on that, and it's included. So yeah, I think we tried as hard as we could to make this a super easy no-brainer. And if it sounds like it's the right thing for you, we hope you'll join us. I think you'll get at least $97 worth of swag, not to mention more than $97 worth of value.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So do please join us for the virtual event on virtual events. If you don't join us, the one thing I hope that you do, and the one thing that I hope you have gotten out of these 90 minutes spent with us, is that live events are in fact not dead. They're alive and well. They may look a little different, but they're not dead. And that you can do this, right? You can decide to do a virtual event, in the next few weeks. Probably not. Don't do it over May 29th to the 31st. do it just after that. And you can get people in a virtual room. You can deliver amazing value, amazing content, and create a life-changing experience for both you and for your attendees by using a lot of the information that we shared with you tonight. So, Barry, any closing thoughts before we wrap?
Yeah, just one final thought to Blue's point, whether you come to virtual event on virtual events or whether you just decide to embrace this medium, just want you to hear that it's easier than you thought. Your people need you now more than they ever have. I think in an incredibly difficult time where the world's upside down, there's a ton of uncertainty. The media is hyping up, negative stories every day. And every day then the story changes. You really don't know what to expect right now. I think to be a leader, to show up and lead your audiences with certainty, with confidence, with clarity, to give them amazing content that they can put into action right away, to give them connection. I think it's really important right now. People are either feeling super isolated in their homes or overwhelmed in their homes, surrounded by no family or surrounded by too much family. There's just so much happening right now that we've never been through before. And if you can give them content, connection, and a sense of like-minded community, I think it's exactly what they're looking for, and you'll be rewarded for that. Not just now, but for a long time, for time to come. So don't sit on the sidelines. Take this opportunity to make this your own in whatever way that might be. If it's theater, if it's the arts, if it's a trade association, a trade show. But most importantly, if you're running seminars, workshops, if you're a speaker, author, or influencer, and you've been wanting to do your first live event or really thinking about how to scale your next live event, think about taking it virtual. And again, know that 80% of it is exactly the same. The tech and the touch are slightly different. We've given you 4 strategies that you can implement right away and 2 examples of people who've already done it, actually more than 2. But the thing we want you to remember is that now's your time and you can do this.
Bye for now, guys.